I became a leader at Brady Club after I had been a play centre leader at Oxford and St George's. My husband, David Dreyer, was the boys' club leader at Oxford and St George's. We had both been to Israel, we both been on Machon, not together. David went first, so I met him and then I went. And then we were going to move actually to Liverpool, where the club at Liverpool wanted David to be the youth director. And then Brady got to hear that we were on the move, and they contacted David and asked him to come see Frank Austin, who was the chairman, asked him to come to his house in Bishop's Avenue for a meeting. The butler let David in and took him into the music room, and there he had a meeting with a few of them from the executive, where they told him that Yogi was leaving, and they offered him the job of the youth director. David was young, he was 27, so it was very, very young for such a position. It was just after youth leaders had to become qualified, and David had just completed his qualification while working at Oxford. We all had to do that while we were working, you see. I mean, now they qualify first. And then they offered me the job of the girls' club leader. And they offered us a flat. We did live in Oxford and St George's as well. So we were on the move. We went to Brady. This was frowned on by some because they were rival clubs, and some of the old managers, very old managers, were, especially at Oxford, were furious with David. But we went, and of course Brady was not strange to me, and we loved it. But David made a lot of changes there, and because he was a new and young leader, so things became different, and he modernised it. All the admin, organise everything, liaise with all the managers, have meetings with them, the membership of the club, and of course the links with the outside bodies and organisations, arrange all the dates and calendars, run the weekends away at Skeet. It was often a 7-day week at Brady, because not only did we have Skeet, but we had Sundays which were a day full of sport. And it was a very busy day, Sundays at Skeet. We sometimes had like 500-600 kids come back there after having played different things, sports and games and things. The relationship between the leaders and the managers was, first of all, very close. We worked very closely together, and they, if someone new wanted to come, then they would apply to David first, and then if it was a girl, they would meet me, if it was a woman. And some of them, of course, were old girls. We didn't have that many old girls become managers. And we'd had a chairman of the managers, but we had regular meetings, and that was the running and the function of the club, based on them and what they were doing and what they wanted to do. They all had different interests. And of course, some of the managers are still involved today with Brady. Dennis Bonnelly, he was our manager that ran all the athletics and football. Did a very good job and a very big job with hundreds of youngsters, girls and boys. And his late wife, Rita, she was one of our managers as well, helped us at the club. So very long-standing relationships. Well, we had new activities and different activities that we introduced. And we had always mixed camps. David introduced mixed camps, and that was very different and very, very modern and far-thinking, you know, forward-thinking. Of course, we still ran the mixed weekends at Skeet, and they grew very popular. See, when we first went there, the Jewish community in the East End was on the demise, and it was getting much, much smaller. The aim of Brady, when they interviewed David, was to run the East End until there were very few there, which they visualised would be within a year, and move the club to North London. But because of David's vision and because of the helpers that we attract, the managers that we attract, we suddenly attracted hundreds of new members. They used to travel to us, mainly from Essex, from Gants Hill, from Redbridge. They came in their hordes to this new modern club. So we couldn't close down and move. And so we stayed open. I mean, you know, we had a manager, Stephen Fishman, who was in charge of socials and dances. And he was young. And he actually became my brother-in-law. And then he had this vision and knew about music and bands, and he booked Jimi Hendrix to come to perform at a dance before he was such a big name. But of course, when the time came for Jimi Hendrix to come, he was a big global star, and they did try to get out of the contract, but they couldn't. Well, I cannot tell you what Hanbury Street was like that night, because we could only let in the numbers that we were insured for. But outside, the whole of Hanbury Street was throbbing with young people, and you could hear Jimi Hendrix out there. So they were all dancing in the street. And it was just amazing, absolutely amazing. And he did everything, you know, broke his guitar and did the whole show. So, you know, we really had a name for being a modern youth club. And it just attracted more and more youngsters. We had about 1,000 youngsters going through each week, yes. Of course, we started with the play centre, and then each club. Yeah, and I mean, we never had quiet nights, ever. It was always full. Brady was a Jewish club for Jewish youngsters. We did have one or two non-Jewish youngsters there, but it was most definitely a Jewish club. It was under the banner of the Orthodox shul. In fact, the chief rabbi used to come to Brady quite often for festivals. All Jewish festivals were celebrated. All food was strictly kosher. Skeet was strictly kosher kitchen. Most of the youngsters were used to this because they came from kosher homes. At camp, for instance, Friday night was celebrated, and the candles were lit and the wine was taken, and we'd have a service and a traditional Friday night dinner. For my time, where Hebrew classes were held for the little ones and the girls, that didn't happen when we were there. That had finished. Because we'd been on the Machon in Israel, David brought this very close link with Israel, and we had the shliach always, which is someone who comes from Israel to work with us for a year. So one of them introduced the memorial for the Holocaust, where we had a very big memorial service that all the youngsters took part in and put on, and that became a new thing. I mean, even when we were abroad, you know, we were in we were in Italy, and we were attached to the youth hostel that we stayed in was attached to the Catholic Church. And we didn't have any candles for Friday night. They gave me the big candles from the church. But luckily, we found a Jewish family in the town. They owned a knitwear shop, and they had candles that we could use for Shabbat. So everything was celebrated, but also I think there was also education through the Israeli link that we had, and then we had a lot of youngsters go on the various trips and educational trips to Israel. The shalichim and the youth workers came over from Israel for the link, because they wanted to link up here. It was very important to Israel that they attracted young people. And therefore, that link of the shlich coming over here inspired many hundreds, because a lot of the clubs had shlichim, inspired many hundreds to go and live in Israel, or certainly go there for a while. The shlich was coming from Israel, Yafet Yeshuahu, who was a huge success with the kids. Huge success. And he ended up marrying one of our managers and taking her back to Israel. But he was late in coming, and David had to go to the advance party to erect the camp. And it was in the Isle of Wight. So David left instructions that when Yafet arrived, I had to send him to the Isle of Wight. So he did arrive, and he got on the train, and then when he was told to get off the train and get on the ferry, Yafet thought he was being deported. Well, having been the leader there, both my children were born while I was at Brady. They were born over the road at the London hospital. So my kids were Brady members from birth, and very much part of the club. They were, they were always around. Once they could walk, all the members, we used to see them toddling around. And it was very much our home. And I don't know, it was very difficult for me when I moved out of Brady into a house. I didn't cope very well at all. I was used to this sort of communal living always. We were a vital part of the East End. Georgia Brown made a programme, One Pair of Eyes. Georgia Brown was a Brady girl, and she was the first Nancy for Oliver on the stage in London. And they came to Brady for a week to film everything with her at the club. And that, that really put us on the map even more so, because this was on television, this programme. And it was incredible. So it was, Brady became like a global name, really, while we were there. And we had all sorts of, VIPs and things come, and who we had to entertain and explain things to. Georgia Brown thought that we should be more open and take non-Jews and other groups from the East End into the club. First of all, our club was full. We weren't in need of any more members, and I don't think we could have coped with any more. I don't think, as far as we know, the local people never really wanted to come into Brady, and so we were never asked or requested. So, but we certainly had links with the local community, because we were on the committees at all the schools, and definitely advised people on what to do. David and I ran training groups very often for other clubs and other community groups. I think the demise of the youth service has led to all the violence and stabbings and dreadful lives that young people live today. And not only are there no youth clubs, but there is just nothing for them. I mean, they build tower blocks without a place for the kids to play. Not that a mother could let the children go all the way down from 14 floors to play downstairs. When we had council flats, they were, I think the tallest was in the Ocean Estate that we knew, and it was about 8 stories. But the flats were always built with a playground, and kids always used the playground. And that created a community. They don't have that now. They just build flats, and there's nowhere for the kids to play. I think if we had a proper youth service, then we wouldn't have half the problems that we have today of any sort. And also, I think we need more after-school clubs where they can use the school's facilities and have youth clubs in there and different classes and activities. I think a lot of the problem also is when they are given money to start a youth club, then they say, oh yes, well, we let the kids play their music and be DJs. This is not what you need. I think a club and leaders, youth workers, are there to stretch the youngsters and to give them new opportunities that they don't normally have. Just to do the same thing that they're doing in their bedroom, that is not a youth centre, and that won't achieve its aims. When the funding was stopped for the youth leaders, that's when even the Jewish clubs started to close. And it's such a vital, it's a necessity. I mean, look how old all the clubs were. And how can you have no youth service at all? And it doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. They have places where maybe the kids can go for help or talk to people, but kids need recreation. Kids need to play, and they don't play. They need organised play. Yeah, they've got some sports clubs and they're very successful, and the boxing clubs are still very successful, and boxing clubs were around when the youth clubs were around. They were as old. Repton Club had a very close relationship with the Jewish clubs, but they need proper youth clubs and youth centres and youth leaders. I don't know where the youth leaders are today. We don't seem to have them. I don't even think there's a course that trains them anymore. And until something like that is done, things I think will get worse and worse. It's down to the government to have a youth service. A youth service must be part of their lives, just as education is. You wouldn't suddenly do away with all the schools. And you shouldn't do away with all the youth clubs. They should be reinvented and reopened, and money needs to be invested and training needs to be given. I hope you're sending it to the government.